Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, just near the English Channel. And we're here with an assembly of sages, including Radharaman, the Prince of Hythe, we call him, Dolamora Prabhu, the temple president of London Soho Street, London ISKCON, Rishikesh Ramani, the gem of sound engineers, and the all-around person, Abhaya Das Brahmachari, who just cooked us a meal that could be one of the best meals we ever had in our lives, actually. And that's 2 in a row, 2 nights straight running. Mm-hmm. So there's a bunch of happy campers here, in case you didn't notice. But you know, the world is going through a real crisis of faith in leadership and authority all over the world, all countries, everywhere. And I suppose, even though we're not of the world, we are in the world. Our transcendental movement of Srila Prabhupada, the ISKCON movement, and the BBT. But because we are in the world, you know, it's very easy for those things to splash onto us. So we have to hold on to our faith in Srila Prabhupada, in the Vedic scriptures. We have to reawaken the faith in the Shastras. That is our duty, our solemn duty to Srila Prabhupada and to humanity in general. So here we are in the haven, trying to put out transcendental sound to awaken the faith in Krishna, in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and in the Vaishnavas, who are trying to spread this movement, counteract this Kali Yuga phenomenon, which is faithlessness, basically. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Mahima Stotram, by Srila Sanatana Goswami, establishes the principle of the authority of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and how we should feel about it. It goes like this. Sarva Shastra Nipiyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho, Kalidvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life, heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Savasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Man Nishtadaga Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin atini chotata kada hanamun chagadachin mam premna rit kantayuk spura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please, never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we've reached, in our reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we've reached the first canto, 7th chapter, the son of Droṇa punished. This is all leading up to the reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. We're starting with text 36. A person who knows the principles of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless, intoxicated, insane, asleep, afraid, or devoid of his chariot. Nor does he kill a boy, a woman, a foolish creature, or a surrendered soul. Purport. An enemy who does not resist is never killed by a warrior who knows the principles of religion. Formerly, battles were fought on the principles of religion and not for the sake of sense gratification. If the enemy happened to be intoxicated, asleep, and so on, as above mentioned, he was never to be killed. These are some of the codes of religious war. Formerly, war was never declared by the whims of selfish political leaders. It was carried out on religious principles, free from all vices. Violence carried out on religious principles is far superior to so-called non-violence. Text 37. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others lives. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at the cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being. Otherwise, he will go down by his own actions. Who's speaking here?
This is Arjuna, isn't it, to Krishna?
I'm not sure, I can't remember. And we'll find out soon enough. Purport. A life for a life is just punishment for a person who cruelly and shamelessly lives at the cost of another's life. Political morality is to punish a person by a death sentence in order to save a cruel person from going to hell. That a murderer is condemned to a death sentence by the state is good for the culprit, because in his next life he will not have to suffer for his act of murder. Such a death sentence for the murderer is the lowest possible punishment offered to him. And it is said in the Smriti Shastras that men who are punished by the king on the principle of a life for a life are purified of all their sins. So much so that they may be eligible for being promoted to the planets of heaven. According to Manu, the greatest author of civic codes and religious principles, even the killer of an animal is to be considered a murderer, because animal food is never meant for the civilized man, whose prime duty is to prepare himself for going back home or back to Godhead. He says that in the act of killing an animal, there is a regular conspiracy by the part of the sinners, and that all of them are liable to be punished as murderers, exactly as like a party of conspirators who kill a human being combinedly. He who gives permission, he who kills the animal, he who sells the slaughtered animal, he who cooks the animal, he who administers distribution of the foodstuff, and at last, he who eats such cooked animal food, are all murderers, and all of them are liable to be punished by the laws of nature. No one can create a living being despite all advancement of material science, and therefore no one has the right to kill a living being by one's independent whims. For the animal eaters, the scriptures have sanctioned restricted animal sacrifices only, and such sanctions are there just to restrict the opening of slaughterhouses and not to encourage animal killing. The procedure under which animal sacrifice is allowed in the scriptures is good both for the animal sacrificed and the animal eaters. It is good for the animal in the sense that the sacrificed animal is at once promoted to the human form of life after being sacrificed at the altar. And the animal eater is saved from the grosser types of sins, namely eating meat supplied by organized slaughterhouses, which are ghastly places for breeding all kinds of material afflictions to society, country, and the people in general. The material world is itself a place always full of anxieties, and by the encouragement of animal slaughter, the whole atmosphere becomes polluted more and more by war, pestilence, famine, and many other unwanted calamities.
This is, by the way, Krishna speaking to Arjuna.
Krishna speaking to Arjuna. Correct. Thank you very much, sage. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. Furthermore, I have personally heard you promise Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer of her sons. 39. This man is an assassin and murderer of your own family members. Not only that, but he has also dissatisfied his master. He is but the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately. Purport. The son of Dronacharya is condemned here as the burnt remnants of his family. The good name of Dronacharya was very much respected, although he joined the enemy camp, the Pandavas, the Pandavas held him always in respect, and Arjuna saluted him before beginning the fight. There was nothing wrong in that way, but the son of Dronacharya degraded himself by committing acts which are never done by the Dvijas or the twice-born higher castes. Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya, committed murder by killing the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi, by which he dissatisfied his master Duryodhana, who never approved of the heinous act of killing the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas. This means that Ashwatthama became an assaulter of Arjuna's own family members, and thus he was liable to be punished by him. In the Shastras, he who attacks without notice, or kills from behind, or sets fire to another's house, or kidnaps one's wife, is condemned to death. Krishna reminded Arjuna of these facts so that he might take notice of them and do the needful. Text 40. Sutta Goswami said, although Krishna, who was examining Arjuna in religion, encouraged him to kill the son of Dronacharya, Arjuna, a great soul, did not like the idea of killing him, although Ashwatthama was a heinous murderer of Arjuna's family members. Purport. Arjuna was a great soul, undoubtedly, which is proved here also. He is encouraged herein personally by the Lord to kill the son of Droṇa. But Arjuna considers that the son of his great teacher should be spared, for he happens to be the son of Dronacharya, even though he is an unworthy son, having done all sorts of heinous acts whimsically for no one's benefit. Lord Sri Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly just to test Arjuna's sense of duty. It is not that Arjuna was it was not that Arjuna was incomplete in the sense of his duty, nor was Lord Krishna unaware of Arjuna's sense of duty. But Lord Sri Krishna puts many of his pure devotees to the test, just to magnify their sense of duty. The gopis were put to such tests as well. Prahlad Maharaj was also put to such a test. All pure devotees come out successful in the respective tests by the Lord. 41. After reaching his own camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend and charioteer, Sri Krishna, entrusted the murderer unto his dear wife, who was lamenting for her murdered sons. Purport. The transcendental relation of Arjuna with Krishna is that of the dearmost friendship. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord himself has claimed Arjuna as his dearmost friend. Every living being is related with the Supreme Lord by some sort of affectionate relation, either as servant, or as a friend, or as a parent, or as an object of conjugal love. Anyone at all can thus enjoy the company of the Lord in the spiritual realm if he desires this happy relation and sincerely tries for it by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Text 42. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Draupadi then saw Ashwatthama, who was bound with ropes like an animal and silent for having enacted the most inglorious murder. Due to her female nature, and due to her being naturally good and well behaved, she showed him due respect as a Brahmana. Purport. Ashwatthama was condemned by the Lord himself, and he was treated by Arjuna just like a culprit, not like the son of a Brahmana or teacher. But when he was brought before Srimati Draupadi, she, although bereaved due to the murder of her sons, and although the murderer was present before her, she could not withdraw the due respect generally offered to a Brahmana or to the son of a Brahmana. This is due to her mild nature as a woman. Women as a class are like boys, and therefore they have no discriminatory power like that of a man. Ashwatthama proved himself to be an unworthy son of Dronacharya, or of a Brahmana, and for this reason he was condemned by the greatest authority, Lord Sri Krishna. And yet a mild woman could not withdraw her natural courtesy for a Brahmana. Even to date, in a Hindu family, a woman shows proper respect to the Brahmana caste, however fallen and heinous a Brahma Bandhu may be. But the men have begun to protest against Brahma Bandhus, who are born in families of good Brahmanas, but by action are less than Shudras. The specific word used in this shloka is Vama Swabhava, mild and gentle by nature. A good man or woman accepts anything very easily, but a man of average intelligence does not do so. But anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. One must have a good discriminatory power to judge a thing on its merit. We should not follow the mild nature of a woman and thereby accept that which is not genuine. Ashwatthama may be respected by a good-natured woman, but that does not mean that he is as good as a genuine Brahmana. Text 43. She could not tolerate Ashwatthama's being bound by ropes, and being a devoted lady, she said, release him, for he is a Brahmana, our spiritual master. Purport. As soon as Ashwatthama was brought before Draupadi, she thought it intolerable that a Brahmana should be arrested like a culprit and brought before her in that condition, especially when the Brahmana happened to be a teacher's son. Arjuna arrested Ashwatthama, knowing perfectly well that he was the son of Dronacharya. Krishna also knew him to be so, but both of them condemned the murderer without consideration of his being the son of a Brahmana. According to revealed scriptures, a teacher or spiritual master is liable to be rejected if he proves himself unworthy of the position of a guru or spiritual master. A guru is called also an acharya, or a person who has personally assimilated all the essence of shastras and has helped his disciples to adopt the ways. Ashwatthama failed to discharge the duties of a Brahmana or teacher, and therefore he was liable to be rejected from the exalted position of a Brahmana. On this consideration, both Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna were right in condemning Ashwatthama. But to a good lady like Draupadi, the matter was considered not from the angle of Shastric vision, but as a matter of custom. By custom, Ashwatthama was offered the same respect as offered to his father. It was so because generally the people accept the son of a Brahmana as a real Brahmana by sentiment only. Factually, the matter is different. A Brahman is accepted on the merit of qualification and not on the merit of simply being the son of a Brahmana. But in spite of all this, Draupadi desired that Ashwatthama be at once released, and it was all the same a good sentiment for her. This means that a devotee of the Lord can tolerate all kinds of tribulation personally, but still such devotees are never unkind to others, even to the enemy. These are the characteristics of one who is a pure devotee of the Lord. Text 44. It was by Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. Purport. Dhanurveda, or military science, was taught by Dronacharya with all its confidential secrets of throwing and controlling by Vedic hymns. Gross military science is dependent on material weapons, but finer than that is the art of throwing the arrows saturated with Vedic hymns, which act more effectively than gross material weapons like machine guns or atomic bombs. The control is by the Vedic mantras, or the transcendental science of sound. It is said in the Ramayana that Maharaj Dasharat, the father of Lord Sri Ram, used to control arrows by sound only. He could pierce his target with his arrow by only hearing the sound without seeing the object. So this is a finer military science than that of the gross military weapons used nowadays. Arjuna was taught all this, and therefore Draupadi wished that Arjuna feel obliged to Acharya Droṇa for all these benefits. And in the absence of Dronacharya, his son was his representative. That was the opinion of the good lady, Draupadi. It may be argued why Dronacharya, a rigid Brahmana, should be a teacher in military science. But the reply is that a Brahmana should become a teacher regardless of what his department of knowledge is. A learned Brahmana should become a teacher, a priest, and a recipient of charity. A bona fide Brahmana is authorized to accept such professions. Text 45. He, Dronacharya, is certainly still existing, being represented by his son. His wife Kripi did not undergo a sati with him because she had a son. Purport. The wife of Dronacharya, Kripi, is the sister of Kripacharya. A devoted wife, who is according to revealed scripture the better half of her husband, is justified in embracing voluntary death along with her husband if she is without issue. But in the case of the wife of Dronacharya, she did not undergo such a trial because she had her son, the representative of her husband. A widow is a widow only in name if there is a son of her husband existing. So in either case, Ashwatthama was the representative of Dronacharya, and therefore killing Ashwatthama would be like killing Dronacharya. That was the argument of Draupadi against the killing of Ashwatthama. Text 46. O most fortunate one, who know the principles of religion, it is not good for you to cause grief to glorious family members who are always respectable and worshipable. Purport. A slight insult for a respectable family is sufficient to invoke grief. Therefore, a cultured man should be always careful in dealing with worshipable family members. Text 47. My Lord, do not make the wife of Dronacharya cry like me. I am aggrieved for the death of my sons. She need not cry constantly like me. Purport. Sympathetic good lady as she was, Srimati Draupadi did not want to put the wife of Dronacharya in the same position of childlessness, both from the point of view of motherly feelings and from the respectable position held by the wife of Dronacharya. 48. Text 48. If the members of the administrative kingly order, being unrestricted in sense control, offend the Brahmana order and enrage them, then the fire of that rage burns up the whole royal family and brings grief upon them all. Purport. The Brahmana order of society, or the spiritually advanced caste or community, and the members of such highly elevated families were always held in great esteem by the other subordinate castes, namely the administrative, kingly order, the mercantile order, and the laborers. Text 49. Sutta Goswami said, O Brahmanas, King Yudhishthir fully supported the statements of the Queen, which were in accordance with the principles of religion and were justified, glorious, full of mercy and equity, and without duplicity. Purport. Maharaj Yudhishthir, who was the son of Dharmaraj or Yamaraj, fully supported the words of Queen Draupadi in asking Arjuna to release Ashwatthama. One should not tolerate the humiliation of a member of a great family. Arjuna and his family were indebted to the family of Dronacharya because of Arjuna's learning the military science from him. If ingratitude were shown to such a benevolent family, it would not at all be justified. It would not be at all justified from the moral standpoint. The wife of Dronacharya, who was the half-body of the great soul, must be treated with compassion, and she should not be put into grief because of her son's death. That is compassion. Such statements by Draupadi are without duplicity because action should be taken with full knowledge. The feeling of equality was there because Draupadi spoke of her own personal experience, out of her own personal experience. A barren woman cannot understand the grief of a mother. Draupadi was herself a mother, and therefore her calculation of the depth of Kripi's grief was quite to the point. And it was glorious because she wanted to show respect, proper respect, for a great family, to a great family. Text 50. Nakula and Sahadev, the younger brothers of the king, and also Satyaki, Arjuna, the personality of Godhead Lord Sri Krishna, son of Devaki, and the ladies and others all unanimously agreed with the king. Text 51. Bhima, however, angrily disagreed with them and recommended killing the culprit, who had murdered sleeping children for no purpose and for neither his nor his master's interest. Text 52. Chaturbhuja, the four-armed one, or the personality of Godhead, after hearing the words of Bhima, Draupadi, and others, saw the face of his dear friend Arjuna, and he began to speak as if smiling. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna had two arms, and why he is designated as four-armed is explained by Sridhar Swami. Bhima and Draupadi held opposite views about killing Ashwatthama. Bhima wanted him to be immediately killed, whereas Draupadi wanted to save him. We can imagine Bhima ready to kill while Draupadi is obstructing him. And in order to prevent both of them, the Lord discovered another two arms. Originally, the primeval Lord, Sri Krishna, displays only two arms, but in his Narayana feature, he exhibits four. In his Narayana feature, he resides with his devotees in the Vaikuntha planets, while in his original Sri Krishna feature, he resides in the Krishna Loka planet, far, far above the Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky. Therefore, if Sri Krishna is called Chaturbhuja, there is no contradiction. If need be, he can display hundreds of arms, as he exhibited in his Vishwarupa shown to Arjuna. Therefore, one who can display hundreds and thousands of arms can manifest four whenever needed. When Arjuna was perplexed about what to do with Ashwatthama, Lord Sri Krishna, as the very dear friend of Arjuna, voluntarily took up the matter just to make a solution, and he was smiling also. Text 53 and 54. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, said, "O, a friend of a Brahmana is not to be killed, but if he is an aggressor, he must be killed. All these rulings are in the scriptures, and you should act accordingly. You have to fulfill your promise to your wife, and you must also act to the satisfaction of Bhimasena and me. Whew. Talking about pressure. Purport. Arjuna was perplexed because Ashwatthama was to be killed as well as spared, according to different scriptures cited by different persons. A Brahmabandhu, as a Brahmabandhu, or a worthless son of a Brahmana, Ashwatthama was not to be killed, but he was at the same time an aggressor also. And according to the rulings of Manu, an aggressor, even though he be a Brahmana, and what to speak of an unworthy son of a Brahmana, is to be killed. Dronacharya was certainly a Brahmana in the true sense of the term, but because he stood in the battlefield and was killed. Oh, I'll read that again. Dronacharya was certainly a Brahmana in the true sense of the term, but because he stood in the battlefield, he was killed. But although Ashwatthama was an aggressor, he stood without any fighting weapons. The ruling is that an aggressor, when he is without weapon or chariot, cannot be killed. All these were certainly perplexities. Besides that, Arjuna had to keep the promise he had made before Draupadi, just to pacify her. And he also had to satisfy both Bhima and Krishna, who advised killing him. This dilemma was present before Arjuna, and the solution was awarded by Krishna. Text 55. Sutta Goswami said, just then, Arjuna could understand the motive of the Lord by his equivocal orders, and thus, with his sword, he severed both hair and jewel from the head of Ashwatthama. Purport. Contradictory orders of different persons are impossible to carry out. Therefore, a compromise was selected by Arjuna by his sharp intelligence, and he separated the jewel from the head of Ashwatthama. This was as good as cutting off his head, and yet his life was saved for all practical purposes. Here Ashwatthama is indicated as twice born. Certainly he was twice born, but he fell down from his position, and therefore he was properly punished. Text 56. He, Ashwatthama, had already lost his bodily luster due to infanticide. And now, moreover, having lost the jewel from his head, he lost even more strength. Thus he was unbound and driven out of the camp. Purport. Thus being insulted, the humiliated Ashwatthama was simultaneously killed and not killed by the intelligence of Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Text 57. Cutting the hair from his head, depriving him of his wealth, and driving him from his residence are the prescribed punishments for the relative of a Brahmana. There is no injunction for killing the body. Text 58. Thereafter, the sons of Pandu and Draupadi, overwhelmed with grief, performed the proper rituals for the dead bodies of their relatives. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 7th chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Son of Droṇa. punished. I mean, what drama? What drama? I mean, the Bhagavatam has everything. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol. All right, we'll stop our reading for tonight. It's 7:46. That went by pretty fast, huh? I mean, it just gone. Amazing. As they say, my how time flies when you're having a great time. All right, so the assembled sages, I humbly entreat you, please, share with us whatever came into your hearts and intelligence, hearing that wonderful, power-packed description of the situation between all of these great souls. Hare Krishna. Rasika Shiromani wants to say something.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for being so devoted to this and giving us the nectar of the scriptures.
Hare Krishna. I'm just a peon, just delivering the mail, that's all.
Having, in our morning readings, as you know, we've went through the divine and demoniac natures. And I can't help but notice the great contrast between Ashvatthama and Arjuna, and actually all the other players, but the juxtaposition of those two is really quite a character study. And Ashvatthama, he makes some pretty stupid mistakes, and Arjuna, he saves the day by coming up with the ultimate solution by Krishna's mercy. But it is interesting just to note these two and how in the end there's a really excellent remedy that Arjuna comes up with. And yeah, it's very nice.
Hare Krishna. He turned to Shastra. He turned to Shastra and he remembered a Shastric injunction, that the son of a Brahmana should not be killed, but he can be humiliated, can be sent away, can be taken as property and sent into exile from human society. Brilliant. And of course Krishna gave him that intelligence. Hare Krishna. Dalmor is going to speak to us his realizations or his reflections on this pastime.
I have no realizations, but what I did like about this pastime, it seems that it's not a common theme, but it's a theme which is approached more than once in the Bhagavatam and other scriptures. What to do in impossible situations.
Yes.
How to reconcile seemingly contradictory things into a situation where everybody can be happy, satisfied at least. I mean, first, Krishna himself, in the Krishna book, when he's being chased by Rukmi, when he's got Rukmini on the chariot, and then, of course, they're fighting, and then finally he gets to the point where he's just about to slay Rukmi, and then Rukmini's pleased, begging him, this is my brother, and so forth, and so he has to decide what to do. He should really kill him, but at the same time, he can't. And so, in line with what the scriptures say, is that dishonoring a Kshatriya by cutting his mustaches or cutting his hair is the same as killing him. So he simultaneously kills him and doesn't kill him.
Yes.
And then, of course, the other example is when, during the great battle of Kurukshetra, when Arjuna is fighting, but Yudhishthira makes a statement to him, why don't you just throw down your Gandiva and walk away from this battle, when he feels that Arjuna hadn't fought to his best capacity. And Arjuna had made that vow that if anybody told him to throw down his Gandiva, he'd immediately kill them. And so then he took out his sword to kill Yudhishthira, and then Krishna intervened with, what are you doing? This is the king, you can't kill the king. So, and then he told him that story about the Brahmana who was never going to tell a lie, and but to the point, Arjuna had to figure out a way to kill Yudhishthira and not kill him. And so Krishna advised him that if you insult a Kshatriya, it's worse than death. So then he offends Yudhishthira. He tells him something rude. Yudhishthira obviously in all humility accepts it and doesn't react. And then that's considered as good as killing Yudhishthira. And so therefore they could continue the battle.
And that's right out of the Gita. To one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death.
Yes. Yes.
Right from Krishna, right from the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, yes. So it's interesting because the Manu Samhita was also mentioned there in one of the purports, how the Manu Samhita delineates exactly the levels of punishment prescribed for all the different varnas and ashrams, because everybody's different.
Yes.
And therefore different punishments are given. And so only one who knows the scriptures can actually correct a person properly.
That's right. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you for filling in the details there. Very nice, very nice. All from Shastra. Thank you. Shastrajit. Okay, who else? No? Oh, okay, not yet. All right. Out in cyberspace, I'm sure there's somebody who has something to say. Hare Krishna.
First comment is from Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Gopakanya Devi Dasi. That's unusual. She got first out of the box. Every day she is. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj and all assembled sages. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and your daily reading service of Srila Prabhupada's books, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Ho.
Thank you. It's a joy. It's a pleasure. Such a nice service to read Prabhupada's books out loud like this. It is the need of the day, I think you could say. The crying need of the day. Hare Krishna. So thank you, Gopakanya Devi Dasi, for every day reminding us of how important this service is. Hare Krishna.
And from Dayal Nitai.
Dayal Nitai, Hare Krishna.
Respected Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your profoundly inspiring association and reading. We were wondering last night why Duryodhana was so upset with Ashwatthama for killing the children, after all he himself has done to eliminate the Pandavas. Would you please explain? Thank you, your servant.
Well, it doesn't take much explaining. It is what he did was against every possible Kshatriya code, every possible religious code, every possible moral principle of all the scriptures. To kill the sons of Draupadi. And these are not children. They were on the battlefield. They were great warriors. It's not that they were babies. That would be even worse, in a sense. But these men were sleeping at night without any opportunity to defend themselves. And this is just the heinousness of this act is Duryodhana, who was, although he was in some ways demoniac, he hated Krishna. But in terms of his administration, he would pretty much follow the rules of the Shastra when he was administrating. He was not a bad leader in that sense, you know. So he couldn't even understand when he heard it. It was so deplorable. He just was disgusted. Which is the deciding factor, I think, in terms of Ashwatthama's, the degree of Ashwatthama's sin, wasn't even acceptable to Duryodhana, who would have loved to kill Bhima fought him to death. His death. So that's the reason that Duryodhana was not happy. Hare Krishna.
From Braj Balaba.
Braj Balaba, Hare Krishna, Hare Bo.
He commented, I also noted that Krishna condemned Ashvatthama. I don't think I care to be in that position.
Well, that probably puts you in pretty good company. Pretty good company.
And he has one more comment. It's amazing to see how all these saintly qualities from different devotees are presented.
Yes, and the import of that is that these books explain to us how we're supposed to act. The personalities who appear on the pages of the Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, they explain to us by their personal example how to behave. And if we don't use this as our yardstick for how we treat one another and how we conduct ourselves as members of this transcendental movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, then we'll have to go back to the drawing board again and again and again, and we'll never figure it out. But all the answers are there in these books. How to solve all of life's problems, individually and collectively. So in our management meetings, we should, as Prabhupada did, he was always giving the example from Shastra to teach us how to behave. He was always thinking about Krishna. And Prabhupada's, what was his entreaty? No, he coined a phrase that material well-being comes from spiritual well-being. And this is the secret to devotee care, for caring for the devotees.
Spiritual solutions for material problems.
Spiritual solutions for material problems. Material well-being comes from spiritual well-being. Therefore, the solutions to material problems are spiritual solutions. Hare Krishna. That might not win us a Nobel Prize, but it will win us the satisfaction of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Krishna, Radha and Krishna, and all their associates. What more do we need than that?
Hopefully, definitely, I'm sure that appears on the devotee care manual.
Hare Krishna. Next.
From Daitari Hari.
Daitari Hari, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Fascinating to see all the different points of view between different pure devotees. It's interesting, every single person has either a slightly different point of view or a major point of view on pretty much every issue, no matter how elevated their position is. I guess that's what it means to be a person. I like the point Prabhupada made once in a letter.
Say that one again. I guess that's what it's like to be a person. Fantastic. Profound.
I like the point Prabhupada made once in answer to a letter about a disagreement between devotees, that the whole utopian idea that everyone on the spiritual platform will always agree is actually impersonalism.
Very good. Yes, that's the famous Utopia letter from Prabhupada to Atreya Rishi. 1972. February 4th exactly, in case you want to read it for yourself. Thank you very much for that.
And from Gopal Roy.
Hey Gopal Roy, our hero.
Thank you, Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribo.
I like how we might find ourselves in a similar situation to Arjuna and be stuck in between different authorities on what is best to do. And like Arjuna, we need to use our intelligence in order to please them all as far as possible. I would also like to send my heartfelt obeisances to Radharaman Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Very nice. He's sending it back to you. Right back to you. Yeah, well that is right to the point I just made. That we learn how to solve all problems, and that's probably the biggest problem. You have two authorities and they're telling you two different things to do. Yeah, it's an easy thing. You have to know what you're doing to do that. Therefore, again, I say, please, all devotees, read these books, hear them, explain them, learn them, and live by them. And you'll be happy camper. Hare Krishna.
Subbarao Rajagopal.
Yes, Subbarao.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you for reading every day. And today's part of the reading presented the dilemma and the action by Arjuna. This kept me thinking about the title of a second Canto chapter, namely, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions.
Yes, precisely. Thank you very much for sharing that realization. Hare Krishna.
And from Bhakti Rupa.
Jai Bhakti Rupa.
I think I'm more on the Bhima side of the spectrum. What Ashwatthama did was appalling. Off with his head.
Well, that's just it, isn't it? You know, there are room for different opinions. And not everyone can be made or forced to think the same. If they are, that's the wrong, we're barking up the wrong tree, so to speak. But there are ways, if we learn the books and learn how to act according to the books, there will be ways. Krishna will give us, just like he gave Arjuna that intelligence, he will give us the intelligence how to behave in such awkward situations. Hare Krishna.
From Gauranga Gopal.
Yes, Gauranga Gopal. He won the marathon. Yep.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I am totally amazed by the character of the Pandavas, their knowledge of Dharma, their total devotion to and surrender to Krishna, and so on. Especially Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam glorifies great women so nicely, like here Mother Draupadi, who personifies the Trinad Api Sunichena verse, showing that respect of scriptures and of others is priority on respect due to her exalted self. Also, it shows that when we live in a culture where we fully live by the scriptures, understanding their conclusion perfectly, the intelligence becomes automatically trained to control the mind, and we can act for the benefit of others, keeping ourselves in the background.
Nice. Very nice reflection. That's very nice. Thank you. Connecting the intelligence to the mind and how the mind's satisfied by always thinking of how to do good for others. Very good.
Also as a question.
Hmm.
Also, on a more practical note, I was wondering, how do we, in this age, navigate between the fact that we shouldn't expect any respect for ourselves and the right to defend ourselves against aggressors.
You do have a right to defend yourself against aggressors, especially if there's violence involved. It doesn't say, there's a saying, when I was a child, there was a saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So it's one thing, you know, if a person attacks you with a deadly weapon or without notice comes to steal your property or sets fire to your house or steal your wife, these are immediately to be, but there's no injunction that I've heard that just by saying something, you know, that means the you know, capital punishment should be invoked. Hare Krishna.
And from Bhakta Sebastian.
Yes, Bhakta Sebastian.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
I really enjoyed today's reading because Mahabharata is my favorite story. Thank you so much. What struck me was Sri Krishna testing Arjuna by telling him to kill Ashvatthama right now, as if he wants to draw out Arjuna's anger and test his sense of duty.
Yes. Yes, because elevated people, there's an injunction, I don't remember exactly where it came from, but I remember reading it for sure, that elevated personalities tend to become attracted to either very exalted situations or very problematic situations, you know, in order to solve them. So this is another symptom of elevated persons. They have capacity to solve very intractable, difficult conundrums in life.
And Braj Vallabha comments, seeing all the devotees there, I am feeling great separation from all the devotees there. Please accept my most humble obeisance.
Jai, we're feeling a separation from you also, Braj. We're just waiting until time arranges for you to come and see us again. Hare Krishna. Well, I must say, it's just in time. You know, we can't make them too long, these sessions, because they're very hard to download and upload to the YouTube from the Facebook, because Facebook makes everything complicated, actually. And if it wasn't for the fact that Facebook is still the most popular, you know, venue for this kind of thing, otherwise I would go over to YouTube and do the live readings in YouTube. But for now, we'll keep it like this until, you know, the mate of universe folds or something. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see what happens. Anyway, thank you all very, very much. And there were many lessons learned in these reflections and these readings tonight. And please let us all apply them into our lives so that we can help spread the Krishna consciousness movement in the best possible way. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same topic. The ever fresh, ever deepening, ever blissful teachings of Sri Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.